Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel for the second to last Buildmas video. Hope you guys have been enjoying. So in this one I'm going to be doing a pretty big build. It is going to be in the kind of entrance section of Wish Blossom Ranch where I've got, the opening well section, and then we've got the two sections behind. And in here, I'm going to be creating a kind of orchard entranceway, a farm with all the new crops and everything, and a stable area. So I wanted to obviously make this quite expansive and add all the things that we needed from all the new stuff, as well as put my home in here so that it had a nice place to kind of go in the valley. And I kind of wanted to be in this biome because it's just the easiest one, then get to all the others. So let's get started. So to start off with, as you can see, we are starting off in this first section, which is a pretty small section. So I added in some of the ancient rink pathway just because I love being able to see through the gaps of this. I just think it works quite well in this biome with like the flowery grass, because I don't want to cover that up too much because I absolutely love how this grass looks. So I wanted to kind of make sure I used a pathway that still showed that off. So I make a weaving pathway with this and then start adding some of the items. Now what I have in here is the market stalls. So Kristoff, Aladdin, Mulan and Tiana's, and then I also added Beast's greenhouse as well as Wally's garden. So these are all the features that obviously we can now put in every single map, so I wanted to make sure I could include them so I can access them at all times. So if you're wondering whereabouts I put those, obviously I didn't put them in my main village, I put them here instead. And then as you can see, I've collected all of the fruit, bushes and trees from all the biomes, and these will get dotted along the pathway randomly to be able to just be harvested as I'm running around. I just find that quite easy. I was going to do a proper set out orchard, but because there's such a limited amount of these bushes and trees, I knew it'd be such a small space, so I decided to do it in this more kind of rustic way instead. As well as that, in here I made it really overgrown, added a couple of the building pieces as well as little fenced out sections. So enjoy seeing the speed build, and I will see you when we get to the next section. So as you can see, once I completed that section, I then moved on to the top left section, which is where I decided to make my farm, as it was slightly smaller than the other section. And I knew I wouldn't need as much room because, again, there is not many harvestable crops in this DLC, which I think is a bit of a shame, but it worked in terms of space. So I decided to add the same pathway and then start figuring out kind of a rectangular shape for the crops. I didn't really have any rhyme or reason as to what kind of spacing I wanted to do, but I decided to just basically add the box, and then we'll see how many crops I can fit in a kind of even number. And then I also added a smaller section up the top, which I do chop and change later on, which is going to be a kind of like little animal section. And then I added in some of the white fencing around. I did actually end up changing this to the brown rustic like snowy one because I had enough. So just bear that in mind, but if you don't have enough of this one, or you're struggling to craft enough at the moment, the white one is a really nice alternative for a farm, so that was what I was going for originally. I also added Owl's Toy Barn, which is from the premium shop, which I always put backwards to kind of be a barn in this biome. Another way to do this, if you didn't have this, would just be to use some of the Wish Blossom like building pieces. I feel like you could definitely make like a little farmhouse looking building with that, or use obviously some of the houses that we got from the deluxe edition. So those would be good alternatives, but I obviously really wanted to use the actual barn here just because I love using it for farm builds, and this is obviously the main farm in this biome, in this map, so I wanted to kind of include that. Some of the big items I included was the icy pond, the craftable water tower, as well as the little like windmill, just to have some of those features around. And then I added obviously a lot of hay bales and things like that. For lighting in here, I added in the Wish Blossom lampposts, the craftable ones. These are just obviously easy to craft in the crafting menu and have quite a few different colours, and they just work quite well in here. So my main sections is going to be the different crops, which is there's 6 of them, so I end up doing an equal amount of those. And then in this back section, I end up making a area where I put the new chicken coop that we got on launch day in the premium shop, where I added some geese to kind of be a little geese habitat, and I added a pond. And then on the left of that, in that small section, you'll see as we go on, I add in some beehives to obviously make this area a nice kind of floral section where obviously honey would be gathered on the farm. And I think that's pretty much everything. So enjoy seeing it get built, and I will see you for the final section after this. So here we are in the final main section. Now this is obviously the biggest section, so this is where I decided to put the stables, and I also included the big windmill blueprint that we got from this area as well. And as well as that, I obviously included my player house, which I have got the skin from the deluxe edition on it, and I just wanted to include that in here so it's easy to access. Now in here, my main kind of things to make was I wanted to make like a field area with some jumps for the horses, and obviously include their stables in here as well. I also wanted to do a little kind of paddock area with the food and water troughs in as well, and I also created a little courtyard section using some benches and a rustic clock tower. And then I pretty much kind of just decorated around the windmill with a little campsite. I also added in a lot of pebbly pathway. I didn't use too much big pathway in here. I did for the top section. And then after that, I wanted it to be quite rustic. So I went off into pebbles and used some of the new craftable snowy pebbled pathway for that. And then obviously kept the foliage in here again. Very busy, very overgrown. Wanted it to have a forest vibe to it, but obviously stuck to the bright greens and also the snowy trees and bushes that I'd had going on in all three to kind of match it all together and basically just create a kind of horsey ranch section. I obviously wanted it to feel quite village and homey, so it's not fully, you know, all horse themed, but I wanted to obviously include those main areas, especially the jumps and the feeding area, to be for them, and that is basically everything about this section. So I hope you enjoy seeing it, and I will see you at the end for the final walkthrough. So here is the final build. As you can see, we are just going to do a little trot through to see everything. So this is obviously the first smallest section where we have obviously the big kind of entranceway, and we've got some of the building pieces to kind of make a makeshift house. We have obviously got all of the different biome trees and fruit bushes all around, just so that these can be collected easily as we wander around. We've obviously got Beast greenhouse in here. So I can access this at all times to get flowers. We've also got, as we walk around, the stalls. So we've got Aladdin, Tiana, Mulan and Kristoff's. So these can obviously be accessed at all times to grab whatever I need. So these just was something I wanted to make sure I got in every so often, especially to get those new gems from Aladdin's. I feel like they'll be the most beneficial. And then walking around, we've obviously got Wally's little garden in the corner, which has obviously filled itself up with the crops from this map. So that'll be handy to grab every so often to grab some of those and stock up. Now heading over the bridge, we are obviously going to go over into the next section, which is obviously our like main stable area. So even though I built this second, I will show it first just because it is the next one. So as we come out by the built-in well, we obviously can see we go straight into that little like seating courtyard. I've added one of the rustic clock towers in here, and obviously some benches to make this kind of a entrance point and a place for people to sit and hang out. And then obviously I've used the alpine pathway in here for this first section to be a little bit more built up to head to those stables. I obviously used the horseshoe archway under the bridge as well as on the other one, leading out to the rest of Wish Blossom. And then we've got our stables in here with my horses in them, and then we've got our first little horse training area, which has obviously got all the jumps and everything in here for the horses to go over. And then I added just some hay bales and some plants and stuff at the back just to fill it up and make it look quite busy in here. Heading out of there, we then obviously transfer onto the more cobbled pathway, which I feel like gives it obviously that more natural look. And as you can see in here, it is very overgrown, very foresty, which was the vibe I was going for. I wanted it to feel like a kind of natural biome. And then as you can see, for this exit out to the rest of Wishing Way, we've obviously got the horseshoe archway again, and just a lot of plants and greenery down this path to kind of border it and give it a structure. And then as we head back, we're obviously going to go around past the little kind of like horse feeding area, I'd say, where we've obviously got the craftable horse feeder as well as the little water troughs. So that I wanted to include to obviously have a space for them to hang out and grab some food. And I added some of the Glamour Gulch green hedges in here just to give it a little bit more colour and to kind of fill it out slightly. And then heading around to the final parts of this biome, we've obviously got the like giant windmill that we had the blueprint for in this biome originally, and then a campfire next to it, which again is just a little craftable one from the DLC. And then opposite that we have got my player house, which I decided to add one of the little fairy swings outside. I know it doesn't quite go, but I wanted it here next to my home, so I decided to add that in. And then obviously it started to lead that pathway out to the final section. And then up here is obviously going to be our farm section. So in here I obviously included all 6 of the new crops, so 2 from each biome. As we head in, we've obviously got these again Glamour Gulch bushes, which I'm using a lot at the moment to lead us in. We've got the little gazebo, which has got some seating in there, and a little table with some flowers and some like a little teapot on it. We've then got our little farming kind of alcove section, which has got our tools and things like that we'd need. And then we've got the craftable water tower before we go into the 6 sections of the build. I do have a kind of more space to add to this if I wanted to, but I kind of liked keeping it symmetrical, and obviously this amount of crops would definitely work for me, even though they are a bit strange looking crops, but you know, it was fine. Opposite that, we've obviously got the Owl's Toy Barn, and then obviously this little section where we have got the geese. It is a bit of a shame with this companion house, they're kind of trapped in that section, so I might have to figure out another way to get some more in there with a different companion house so they wander around more, because that made me a little sad. We've obviously got the makeshift pond in there, and then we've got our little beehive section where the honey would be collected on the farm, and then obviously our little exit out to Glamour Gulch. I hope you guys did enjoy. Let me know if you've created kind of a farm and stable place on Wish Blossom Ranch yet. and I hope you did like it. And it was quite a big build. It did take me quite a while, but I'm definitely happy with how it turned out. I think I'll probably add to it and change some things over time as I craft more things and kind of add things onto it, but I'm happy with how it is looking so far. I hope you guys are enjoying Buildmas, and I will see you tomorrow for the last one, but make sure you like and subscribe before you go, and I will see you then. Bye!